Hello and welcome to Ask MotorInc. On Circles, which is like a small social media network within the free to download MotorInc app, people ask us questions all the time, and all they do is use the hashtag AskMotoring. We answer those questions on Circles first, and some of the interesting ones we pull up here into this video segment that we were super imaginative about it, Ask Motoring. And the first question I have today is from CHXNCHXL01. So I'm assuming that's Chanchal01. Tell me if I'm right. And he's asking, when should a person upgrade their vehicle? His question is pertinent to bikes, but he's saying, yeah, he can imagine that car people may have the same question. And should they upgrade their vehicles by adding and subtracting stuff from it, so improving the feel of a current vehicle, or should they simply just buy a brand new one? This is a super, super, super juicy question. And to me, it's maybe a little bit easier to solve for motorcycles than cars because motorcycles do produce a lot of emotion. And to me, emotion is the primary way that you will figure out that you need to upgrade or not. And this emotion is usually in the form of boredom, where you might have a lot of genuine affection for this vehicle that you've got in the garage, but you also have this increasing sense of, yeah, but I don't want to ride it today. So you do have a sense of, oh, I love that bike so much, but mm, I don't want to ride that today. And when that feeling starts to tip over from affection towards I don't want to ride it today, is the time that you need to be upgrading. Now, upgrading first, it requires money. If you have enough money, you could get a completely new product to replace it with or to accompany the bike with. And sometimes that is a powerful way to do it, which is you have a bike, you love it, you're sort of getting bored, but you have money, you buy a second one, and then you ride them together. And eventually you'll figure out that, okay, so I just don't ride the old one at all anymore. And at that point, it might be easier to get rid of it because that emotional attachment has weakened over the time. The other way to think about it is you don't have the money to buy a brand new product, in which case, this product can be upgraded. It can be upgraded slowly, which means budget is less of a constraint. You have time on your hand, and then you can start working out. I love this product overall, but what are the things that I could change, maybe one at a time, to make it just feel better and better and better? Sometimes it's as simple as just brand new tires and brake pads, and new fluids will dramatically transform the vehicle. Sometimes it's that plus a small cosmetic upgrade where you put a new paint scheme or something on it. Sometimes you will need even more stuff, which is I'm going to do all of this, I'm going to change all the bearings, the vehicle will get smoother because of it, etc. So it's a rabbit hole. But to me, if you really truly love a vehicle, then there is no real upgrading from it. You can add things beside it in the garage, but it's an emotion that will tell you. In the case of cars, I think the emotions are a little bit more subtle, so you'll have to pay a little bit more attention. But cars also care about their practicality and utility a lot more than motorcycles do, so it might be pretty obvious that you have to upgrade from the car. And Kartikeya's advice for cars always is, if you're feeling like you need to upgrade the current vehicle that you've got, always start with new tires to restore the new car feeling. It's a very powerful place to start. The next question is from Stephen Charles, and he wants to know, what makes an intercom good? Should you purchase it? And what are the advantages and disadvantages? An intercom is just a fancy name for a Bluetooth device that fits as neatly as possible into your helmet. And in terms of buying an intercom, what you want to watch for are basically two or three things. One is comfort. So after the speakers are installed, etc., you should still be able to put your head into the helmet. There should be no pressure points. The speakers shouldn't touch your ears, etc. One is that side. Second, volume. If you use earplugs, certain brands do account for the fact that riders use earplugs and then build the systems accordingly, which means without the earplug, the system can become very loud at max volume. And you need that incredible force of sound because normally you'd have earplugs and then you'd have difficulty hearing. And the third is clarity. Clarity being, can I hear the other side? And clarity also being, can they hear me? I have a Cardo Scala unit. I think it's called a Packtalk Edge or something. It's one of the expensive units. Most of the time, I'm basically saying, let me pull over and talk with you if it's an important call, or I'm saying, uh, let me finish my ride. I'm going to call you maybe tomorrow. This is basically what I do with my phone calls. But when I do these, most of the time, the person on the other side can't actually tell I'm on the motorcycle. So the sound cancellation, the way it isolates the voice, etc., working really well. This is what you pay extra for in terms of an intercom. The con of an intercom is the danger that you will actually take phone calls, and that self-discipline is yours to bring to that table. I do not listen to music, but a lot of intercoms will let you listen to music, which to me on a motorcycle does not belong. It's a distraction. Yeah, you will disagree. Some people think music is okay. I think it's not. I do wear earplugs. I'm anyway in a quiet place, and I like my motorcycling to be in that quiet place. And the third, there is a device that goes onto the outside of your helmet. And are you comfortable with that or not is a question that you have to answer, because a helmet is designed to have that round shape so that when you fall, the impacts are lessened. But when you have a device here, and depending on how you mount it, that may not be such a great idea. And I will never stick stuff to my helmet. Some intercoms expect you to stick things on your helmet. Many of you do it for your action cameras anyway, which is a terrible idea. But if you're sticking things on your helmet, you're effectively ruining the structural integrity of the helmet possibly anyway. So these are the other considerations. Prices 2,000 to 80,000, something like this. If you want to experiment with an intercom and see if adds value to your riding or not, maybe spend on a less expensive one. If you want to go to the brands that are well known, to me, Cardo makes the best ones. Sena's right up there with them. I've used them much less than Cardo's, but Cardo's generally perform really well. At the other end of the range is a brand like Parani. You can try it out and see what works for you. To me, the biggest thing about intercoms is discipline. If you abuse them, then they will take your attention away from riding. In a car, that's still a crash cage and airbags and seat belts and all of this. On a motorcycle, you're super vulnerable. It's a chance I would not want to take. Okay, the next question is from a handle called Arghya. I'm assuming that's Argho, but tell me if I'm right again. And the question is, on what interval should you change motorcycle fork oil? His suggestions are, should you do a timeline thing every 1 2 or 3 years? Should it be a kilometer based, which is every 10, 15, 20, 30,000 kilometers? Or should it be done when a fork seal gives up? He's saying he's not able to find any specific explicit references to these intervals in the user manual. So he has this question. Now, when I've worked on my KTM 390 Duke, which I push pretty hard, I do realize that the suspension starts to fade and in time. And when the suspension starts to fade, giving it a rebuild can really help. Building suspension and rebuilding suspension is not easily available expertise in India, but at least you can change the oil in your telescopic forks for sure. Now, most manufacturer recommendation is that every 2 years you change the fork oil out. On the Ducati, the official recommendation was you would do it at Desmo service, that is at 30,000 kilometers. But how I would say this is, if you're not using your motorcycle a lot and want to have that sense of great suspension, you should be thinking about rebuilding your suspension roughly every 2 years. And this is to me an extreme case where you are very cautious, you're very plugged into your motorcycle, you feel all of that going on and you want the premium experience. If you're not going to be that kind of super cautious about it, fork oil change every 2 years and maybe a rebuild attempted every 5 years, you should be okay. But the exception to this is you either riding really hard, which means that fork oil is going through a lot of heat cycles, it's moving through its stroke a lot, or you ride a lot in terms of you're putting massive distances. If you're putting massive distances, then you should be moving that fork oil change up in the cycle. Most people, let's call it, ride 800 to 1,000, 1,200 kilometers a month max. So that comes to about 10, 15,000 kilometers. And to us in India, this is a regular motorcyclist, but not somebody who's putting an extraordinary amount of mileage on their motorcycle. If you're going above this, then the intervals need to be shorter. How do you figure out what it precisely is? Honestly, there is no easy way to figure it out precisely. But if you pay attention to it, you pay attention to how your commute feels every day in terms of suspension, eventually in time, you will be able to work out whether it has become better or worse. One powerful way to achieve this is to ride somebody else's motorcycle for a day, because it gives you a break between the slowly changing suspension continuum. It gives you a break and you come back to your motorcycle, say, oh, okay, now it's not doing that anymore. And then you know you need an oil change. This is one of my favorite topics. Om 1997 is asking, what are my remarks on loud aftermarket exhausts on bikes? Why are they available in the market if they are not legal? Well, my opinion on exhausts is that spending money on them, paying attention to them, both are a utter and total waste of time. I have never bought an aftermarket exhaust. One of my used motorcycles came with an Akrapovic exhaust, and I could not source a stock exhaust to replace it with, and I tried really hard. And the owner basically said, come to my house and look at it, and if you can find it, then you can take it. And that was a bridge too far. So I personally, on my motorcycles, I am good with stock exhausts. I believe the time of loud motorcycles is now behind us. Motorcycling is being perceived poorly in many places around the world, and one of the most powerful symbols of bad behavior, unfortunately for you, people who love exhaust and that sound, unfortunately for you, happen to be the exhaust. So to me, whether the exhaust actually does something for your motorcycle or not itself is debatable because of how strictly the engines have to be tuned today for emissions, part A. But part B, it paints such a bad picture because of people's preconceived notions. It's not our fault really in some ways, but even if you account for all of this, today, a loud exhaust, you're just becoming part of the motorcycling culture that is perceived as badly behaved, boorish behavior. And I don't know that you should do it. So to me, if I had money to buy a 3.5 lakh rupee Akrapovic exhaust for a Ducati, that's how expensive they can become. And there are more expensive versions than this. I'd just spend it on petrol and ride my motorcycle instead, honestly. Okay, Josh J, another of my favorite topics, is asking earplugs while riding. Is it something safe to use? Does it cut wind noise? Does your helmet play a role in it? First, please assume that your helmets are noisy. Helmets are designed to protect your head, they're designed to keep you comfortable inside the helmet, but noise, unfortunately, is not one of those considerations which comes to the top of helmet design. So you can get lucky with a reasonably quiet helmet, but that's not what the helmet is designed for. Now, what you should know, you can look this up, is if you ride at, I think, 60 kilometers an hour for 15 minutes, your ear takes permanent damage from that. And unfortunately for riders, this damage accumulates over time. So you'll be okay. But when you're 40 years later and you've been riding motorcycles for a long time, there will be something called tinnitus, which is, it sounds like your ears always ringing. And this happens to old motorcyclists all the time. And the easy way to prevent it is to use earplugs. Everybody thinks earplugs block out sound, but they do not. What earplugs do is they reduce the volume of the sound you receive, and it's a very powerful calming influence when you ride motorcycles. There's two things I want to warn you about. One, please do try all kinds of earplugs before you decide what you want to buy. And the starting point is not the expensive earplugs, because there are brands in there like No Noise and Loop. Do not buy these brands. They are the end of your decision cycle, not the beginning. The beginning, go to Amazon. Amazon today has tons of cheap earplugs in various styles. There's silicone ones for swimming, there's foam ones, etc. Buy one each of these cheap ones. Some of them have stalks that stick out of the ear. Cut the stalks off if they interfere with your helmet. Try out which one fits you best, which one feels the best, and then decide whether you want to spend on something expensive like this No Noise and Loop and other kinds of earplugs. That's one. The second thing I want to say is, do not wear the earplugs if you've never worn them before. Put them in your ear and get straight on the bike, because that's a terrible idea. You'll feel completely disconnected from the experience and it can be very, very unsettling. The trick is, if you're planning to ride with an earplug tomorrow for the first time on your motorcycle, wake up in the morning and before you do anything else, put the earplugs in and put them in properly. There's a technique to it which you can look up on YouTube. I'll put a post on it in circles if you like. And then wear the earplugs until you're ready to get on the motorcycle, which could be 2, 3, 4 hours later. What you're trying to get your body to accept is this new volume level of the world, and your body will adapt to it. It will accept it. And when you get on the motorcycle, you will realize the world is quieter, but it's not like you can't hear a thing. You will be able to hear conversations, you'll be able to hear people honking, all of it. It's just be, instead of being super loud, it'll just be very quiet. And that's a very calming and a very serene motorcycling experience. I absolutely love it. Today, I would not ride a motorcycle without earplugs at all. Like, not at all. The last question we have today is from a handle called TARS, TARS, and they're asking, how do you understand how preload works? It's quite simple. You can think about it in two ways. One is, when you add weight to a motorcycle, it is different from the weight that the manufacturer might have designed it for, which is usually about 65, 70 kilos, 5'7", something like that in India. And if you're very far away from those baselines, then preload is a way to adjust the motorcycle to behave the same way but account for your weight. That's one way to think about it. Second way to think about is, when you sit down on a motorcycle, some of your weight goes towards the back of the motorcycle, a little bit more than the front. This is how they're designed. And when that happens, and you're not the design weight of the motorcycle like we spoke about, then the motorcycle can squat at the back, which means it'll handle slowly, it'll turn more lazily, etc. And preload is a way to bring the attitude back. So these are the two ways to think about it. I have a really long post on my profile in Circles that explains the logic and approach to setting up preload. I suggest that you go there and see it. There's no mathematics, no formulas. It's a very simple idea. This is what it does. This is how you use it. And this is what I'd like you to try. That's in Circles. I'd like you to go and try it. And with that, we come to the end of this Ask Motoring. Now, if you're wondering how to ask us these questions that we're taking, you have to be on Circles. It's free. And just use the hashtag AskMotoring and ask whatever questions you've got. We typically avoid, should I buy this vehicle or those vehicle kind of questions, for just one reason. To us, that's a one-to-one conversation, because there's nobody else on earth who thinks exactly like you, and we'd like to be able to give you a specific answer rather than a generic answer. For that reason, we're not taking vehicle buying questions, but if you have any other questions, whether the questions are really basic or really advanced, we're quite happy to explore the idea and see where it leads us, and hopefully we can help. If we are helping, thank you so much for watching. Please do tell your friends about Ask Motoring.